On the day of my 20th birthday, my fiancé returned to the capital with his troops. In the great hall, he knelt and asked the emperor to grant a marriage. Kaiwei saved my life. I beg your majesty to grant my wish. I hid behind a pillar, my whole body stiff. We've known each other since we were young, and I had secretly given him my heart. Father Emperor had also long ago arranged our marriage. To let him fulfill his ambitions for the country, I waited for him for 6 full years. I waited until I became an older princess in the capital, only to wait for him asking Father Emperor to grant him a marriage to another woman. At that moment, I finally lost all hope and asked Father Emperor to fulfill their wishes. I turned around and agreed to young Marquis Yan, who had proposed to Father Emperor. The day he welcomed his bride was the time I was married off. The 2 wedding processions brushed past each other. In this life, I have no further ties with him. On the day of my 20th birthday, Father Emperor said he had prepared a grand gift for me. When my personal handmaiden came to report, I found out what this grand gift was. My fiancé, General Shen Qing of the Iron Cavalry, is back. He is finally back. 6 years ago, the scene of him in full armor leading the army out to war is still vivid before my eyes. I can't wait to see him. In the Great Hall, the soldiers stood side by side, waiting for Father Emperor to grant rewards based on merit. Shen Qing stepped forward, his armor gleaming with golden light, making him look radiant. That handsome, resolute face was just like it was back then, making my heart race. I hid behind the pillars of the grand hall, my heart pounding. Before Father Emperor could speak, Shen Qing knelt on one knee, cupped his fists, and requested, "Your Majesty, this subject has a wish, and I hope your Majesty will grant it." Since he was a meritorious official, and soon to be the prince consort, Father laughed heartily. "Tell me your wish, I will grant anything you ask." This subject wishes to marry the commoner Zheng Kaiwei. As soon as these words were spoken, the grand hall went into an uproar. Everyone knows that 6 years ago, Shen Qing and I were engaged. If he hadn't led the troops to war, we would have been happily married long ago. Father Emperor looked displeased. "Shen Qing, you still remember your engagement to Princess Chang'ing?" Shen Qing stiffened, but immediately replied, "I dare not forget. But back then, when I led the attack and was ambushed by the enemy, I was gravely wounded in the snow and on the verge of death. It was Zheng Kaiwei who saved my life. Kaiwei saved my life. I beg your Majesty to grant my wish." My whole body went stiff as I looked in disbelief at the man kneeling on the ground. I still remember the year I came of age. Under the peach blossom tree, the man personally placed a peach blossom hairpin in my hair. "Qing, I want your exclusive affection. How about we spend a lifetime together? Just the 2 of us." I looked up at him, my eyes full of anticipation. Shen Qing stroked the tips of my hair and replied in a low voice, "Okay." Because of that okay from Shen Qing, I waited for him for 6 whole years until I became the spinster princess mocked by everyone in the capital. But why did he break his own promise so easily? I clutched my chest, a dense, stinging pain radiating from my heart. Father Emperor was furious. "If you marry another woman, where does that leave my daughter?" Shen Qing's voice remained calm. "Princess Chang'ing is still my principal wife. Kaiwei and I will do our utmost to serve her, and we won't let the princess suffer the slightest grievance." I couldn't help but want to laugh. It turns out that in his eyes I am not his wife, but just a master who needs their service. I walked in quickly and said sternly to the man's back, "Shen Qing, if you want to repay a debt of gratitude, there are other ways. Why must you marry her?" Everyone's gaze turned towards me. With looks of amusement or mockery, I knew they were waiting to see me make a fool of myself, to see how this unruly princess would be publicly humiliated by her fiancé. Shen Qing turned around. The moment our eyes met, his gaze flickered, but he quickly lowered his head again. Seeing me, Father Emperor immediately smiled. "Chang'ing, what are you doing here? Come to Father, quick." Then he turned to Shen Qing and said, "Indeed, if you want to repay kindness, you can choose other ways. Gold, silver, jewels, silks, and satins. I can bestow them all upon her." Shen Qing didn't answer, just kneeling there with his back straight. How was this not a form of silent resistance? Suppressing the tightness in my chest, I asked him, Shenqing, do you truly want to marry her? Even if your official rank is stripped and you are demoted to a commoner, would you still be willing? Shenqing's dream since childhood was to defend his home and country, and to become a general of the state. Aside from his ambitions for the country, he also wanted to prove to those people that even as the son of the Grand Tutor's concubine, he could carve out his own path, and no one would dare trample on or bully him again. Shenqing, who had been silent for a long time, finally looked up, his gaze firm. I am willing. I dug my nails hard into my palms, not letting my tears fall. I never thought that for the sake of a woman, Shenqing would be willing to give up even his future and his dreams. For a moment, everyone in the court looked at each other in dismay, then turned their eyes to Father Emperor. They knew that although Father Emperor doted on me, he wouldn't agree to this. Shenqing had achieved repeated success in battle, and was already a great hero in the hearts of the people. If his merits were erased and his titles stripped just because of a small matter, like taking a concubine, it would likely cost the emperor the people's support. More importantly, once Shenqing was demoted to a commoner, the gap in our status would be too wide, and we would no longer be a match. And other than Shenqing, no one else would dare to marry an older, unruly princess like me. Sure enough, after thinking it over, Father Emperor spoke in a negotiating tone. How about we choose a different punishment? Shenqing knocked his head against the ground. I am willing to accept any punishment. Looking at his determined figure prostrate on the ground, I sighed softly, then kneel outside the hall for the night. It was the depth of winter, and the weather was freezing cold. After kneeling in the snow all night, Shenqing passed out. The injuries he sustained in the war hadn't fully healed yet, and with the added exposure to the cold, he fell bedridden. Rumors began to spread all over the capital. Rumors are spreading in every tea house and tavern that Princess Changing is narrow-minded, and that it is perfectly normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Some also say that Princess Changing is old and domineering, unworthy of the highly decorated General Shen, and that she should just live by the blue lantern and ancient Buddha, growing old and dying alone. Inside the carriage, Shir was fuming with indignation. How can this General Shen treat you like this, princess? He was born a concubine's son himself, and has lived through the struggles of the inner courtyard. Why would he repeat the same mistakes? It is true. Shenqing and I have both suffered enough from the infighting in the palace and the inner courtyards. I don't want to scheme against other women, nor do I want my children dragged into such struggles. I thought Shenqing understood me, that our minds were one. But now, he is willing to accept punishment just to marry that woman and bring her home. It seems he loves her to the bone. The carriage jolted. I lifted the curtain. The royal mausoleum was covered in pure white snow, a scene of desolate chill. I arrived at my mother consort's tomb to pay my respects. Before she passed, my mother consort was deeply favored by the emperor. Her favor surpassed everyone in the 6 palaces. After the empress passed away, the emperor even intended to make my mother the empress, ignoring the opposition of his officials. But my mother's health deteriorated day by day, until finally she withered away and died. I knew someone had plotted to harm her, but I was too young to find the real culprit and avenge my mother. In the harem, new faces always replace the old. With my mother gone, the emperor was soon surrounded by many concubines vying for his attention. Gradually, Father Emperor's attention and doting toward me faded, and without any backing, I was bullied by others however they pleased. Until one time, I was being whipped by a few princesses, and Father Emperor happened to see it. Father Emperor flew into a rage, punished those princesses, and sent me to be raised under the Empress Dowager's name. With the Empress Dowager's protection, I was no longer bullied, and I even dealt with all the people who killed my mother consort and bullied me. My reputation for being unruly and domineering spread because of this, and the noble ladies and young lords in the capital all avoided me like the plague. Mother consort, if I can't get undivided love, then I'd rather not have this marriage. I kowtowed 3 times before Mother Consort's grave, rose and brushed the accumulated snow off the tombstone. But before I propose the annulment to Father Emperor, I have to go find Shenqing to ask for something. When the servants at the general's manor saw me, their attitude was cold and distant. After all, it was me who made their master bedridden with a serious illness. In the front hall, I waited for 4 hours, and a fresh and beautiful young girl walked over from the rear courtyard. As soon as the young girl saw me, she immediately looked on the verge of tears and knelt on the ground. "Your Highness, if you want to vent your anger, take it out on me. Stop making things difficult for Brother Shenqing. He almost died." That tear-stained look only highlighted my viciousness. "I have business with Shenqing." I didn't want to tangle with her, so I stepped forward to head to the back courtyard. Suddenly, Zheng Kaiwei tightly hugged my leg. "Brother Shenqing hasn't regained consciousness yet. I beg you, Your Highness, please don't hurt him anymore." She held me tight. I couldn't break free, but suddenly catching a glimpse of her neck, I froze on the spot. "What is this?" I bent down to grab the safety lock around her neck, but she dodged. Zheng Kaiwei knelt on the ground, shielding that jade safety lock with her hands. "Your Highness, brother, Shenqing gave this to me, saying it can protect me for a lifetime." "What a protector for a lifetime." I laughed so hard tears almost came out. This is the only thing my mother consort left me before she passed, hoping I would be safe my whole life. But 6 years ago, before Shenqing went off to war, I personally put the safety lock on him. "Shenqing, you must return safely. I'll wait for you to come back and marry me." Shenqing's large hand grasped the safety lock, his dark eyes gazing at me as he said in a deep voice, "Wait for me." I waited for him for 6 years, only to have him bring back another woman, only to have him give the safety lock to someone else. My body couldn't stop trembling, and the rims of my eyes turned slightly red. "Give me back my safety lock." I stepped forward to grab it, but Zheng Kaiwei guarded it fiercely. "Brother Shenqing gave this to me. What right do you have to snatch my things, princess?" As we tugged back and forth, the thin cord snapped. The jade safety lock smashed onto the ground, shattering into 2 halves. It felt as if my heart had also been shattered into pieces on the ground. Zheng Kaiwei looked even sadder than me, crying as she went to pick up the shattered piece lock. "Brother Shenqing, it is Kaiwei who is useless. I couldn't even protect the thing you gave me." Just as her dirty hands were about to touch the piece lock, I couldn't hold back anymore, pulled the whip from my waist and lashed out. "Don't touch my piece lock. You steal other people's stuff and still think you are in the right." The whip in my hand struck heavily against her body. Zheng Kaiwei curled up into a ball on the ground in pain. "Your Highness, spare my life. I won't dare do it again. I won't fight you for Brother Shenqing anymore. Please don't hit me. Brother Shenqing, save me." The next second my hand was forcefully clamped tight by someone. "Your Highness, how has Kaiwei offended you to make you fly into such a rage?" Shenqing's face was pale, but he still exerted force with his hand, gripping my wrist until it hurt. I sneered. "How did she offend me? She snatched my things. You tell me, does she deserve a beating?" Shenqing's expression stiffened, and he lowered his eyes, saying, "If it is because I asked the emperor to grant the marriage, then hit me instead. I was the one determined to marry her. It has nothing to do with Kaiwei." I laughed mockingly. "Shenqing, just who do you think you are to be worth my anger? I ask you, why did you give her the peace lock I gifted you? Do you know that was a keepsake from my late mother consort?" Shenqing turned to look at the shattered peace lock on the ground, stunned in place. "Since she snatched my things, I must teach her a good lesson." I raised my whip again. Zheng Kaiwei curled up on the ground, crying and begging for mercy. Seeing this, Shenqing threw himself forward to hug Zheng Kaiwei, and the whip struck his back. Bloodstains instantly appeared on his white undershirt. When I was young and being whipped by other princesses, Shenqing used to protect me tightly like this too. But now, he was shielding another woman beneath him. I whipped him with all my might, but tears kept streaming down my face. Until I was too tired to hit anymore, until Shenqing lay in Zheng Kaiwei's arms, barely breathing. I threw away the whip and turned to leave. The biting wind and snow slapped against my face, the pain spreading through every limb and bone. Even though my body was frozen numb, I kept walking forward numbly. I don't know how long I walked, but my strength finally gave out, and I fainted in the snow. When I woke up, I was already lying inside the princess's manor. The year I turned 18, Father Emperor built a manor for me outside the palace. This was considered an early wedding gift from Father Emperor. Princess, you are finally awake. Sheer hurriedly helped me up and brought a cup of water to my lips. I took a sip and asked her, Sheer, how did I get back? In my memory, the last thing I did was collapse in a small alley outside the general's manor. Princess, you scared us to death. Sheer's voice trembled with lingering fear. When you didn't return to the carriage for a long time, we looked everywhere for you. The people at the general's manor said you had left, but we couldn't find you anywhere. In the end, it was young Marquis Yan who carried you back. Young Marquis Yan. Yanjang, Sheer nodded. If it weren't for young Marquis Yan, Princess, you would have almost frozen to death in the alley. I was in a trance, wondering how he could have found me, and even carried me back. The door was suddenly pushed open from the outside, and a clear magnetic male voice rang out. Sister Changning, you are awake. Look what I brought you. The visitor was dressed in a purple robe with a jade crown binding his hair. After 3 years of tempering in the military camps, his handsome face had shed its childishness and gained a bit of a mature man's fortitude. 3 years ago, the situation at the front lines was critical, and the imperial court urgently needed to send reinforcements. Yanjang petitioned his father, the emperor, to allow him to lead troops there. In my eyes, Yanjang has always been a little brother 3 years younger than me, a kid still wet behind the ears. Back then, I even mocked him. Can you handle it? Don't go peeing your pants the moment you step onto the battlefield. Yanjang looked defiant. Don't underestimate me. If Shen Qing can do it, so can I. I also want to be a great general who protects our home and defends the country. Latter, he indeed did it. He led reinforcements to the battlefield, coordinated with Shen Qing from the inside and outside, and repelled the enemy army. In the battles that followed, he repeatedly offered brilliant strategies, working in perfect sync with Shen Qing to achieve illustrious military merits. That day in the Great Hall, Yanjang must have also been in the ranks of soldiers waiting for their rewards. It is just that all my attention was on Shen Qing, so I ended up overlooking his presence. A bag of osmanthus cakes suddenly waved before my eyes. Stop sleeping. Wake up. I snapped out of it, snatching the osmanthus cakes from his hand. You are the one who was sleeping. The sound of a man's light chuckle drifted to my ears. Sheer had slipped out of the room at some point. I opened the oil paper, and the scent of osmanthus rushed over me. My eyes grew slightly moist. When Mother Consort was alive, she loved making osmanthus cakes for me the most. Whenever I threw a tantrum, a single piece of osmanthus cake was enough to coax me. Yanjang held a handkerchief and wiped the corners of my eyes. His tone lazy. Sister Changning, a single piece of osmanthus cake has moved you this much. If you were to offer yourself to me because of this, tell me, should I agree or not? I gave him a fierce glare. Sure enough, his maturity was just a facade. Deep down, he was still that irreverent young Marquis Yan. Strangely enough, the noble young ladies and gentlemen of the capital all loathed me and avoided me. But somehow, Yanjang and I got along quite well. Perhaps, I was the only one who could handle his mischievous and unruly nature. Chaining. Yanjang's tone suddenly turned serious. I lifted my head from the osmanthus cake to look at him. Somewhat blankly, he rarely spoke to me so seriously. His pitch-black pupils stared at me. Break off the engagement. Shen Qing isn't right for you. I rested in the residence for a month, never stepping a foot outside. During this time, Yanjang often came to see me, bringing some food and little trinkets to relieve my boredom. Aside from that, Shen Qing also came by a few times. But the servants in the residence strictly followed my instructions, and didn't let him in. Sheer said indignantly, "This General Shen takes a concubine, and gives your peace lock to another woman. Princess, how does he still have the face to come see you? Does he think that sending back the repaired peace lock and kneeling at the door for a day means you'll forgive him, Princess?" Yeah, Shenqing is certain that I will forgive him. Helping each other in childhood. Our similar circumstances, we have always sympathized with one another, spending day and night together for so many years. We have long become an inseparable whole. So, when Father Emperor came to the manor to visit me, I brought up breaking off the engagement to Father Emperor. Father Emperor remained silent for a long while, then said, "Chaining, have you really thought this through?" I nodded. "Father Emperor, I don't want to follow in my mother consort's footsteps." Father Emperor sighed. Born into the imperial family, many things are beyond one's control. But he felt he owed me, so he respected my decision. After a good while, Father Emperor spoke again. "Actually, Yanjang also asked me to grant a marriage. He said he wants to marry you." My thoughts returned to that day. Yanjang asked me to break off the engagement. Actually, I had already made my decision, but I wanted to tease him. If I break off the engagement, then I can only grow old alone. After all, with my age plus this not-so-good reputation, no one in the capital dares to marry me. "I'll marry you," Yanjang answered without hesitation. I looked at him in shock. "Did you drink too much flower wine?" Yanjang rolled his eyes. "Never touched the stuff. But I am 3 years older than you. A wife 3 years older holds a gold brick. I demand a lifetime of just the two of us. If you marry me, you cannot take concubines, nor have any other women." Yanjang raised 3 fingers. "I swear, in this life I will only have Chaining as my woman, and will absolutely never have a change of heart." At the time, I was scared by his serious expression, and hid under the quilt to play dead. Unexpectedly, he really did ask Father Emperor to grant the marriage. "Chaining, in terms of all conditions, Yanjang is more worthy of your status as a princess than Shenqing. Although he is 3 years younger than you, these years have tempered him to be much more steady. Moreover, growing up, there haven't been any other girls around him besides you." Father Emperor was right. Yanjang is the legitimate eldest son of Marquis Yan, a general with military merits, so his status naturally matches mine. As a child, he was mischievous and loved to tease people, so little girls kept their distance from him. After growing up, he became much more mature and steady. There was no lack of noble ladies in the capital who admired him, but he never gave any of them a second glance. Yanjang is indeed the best choice I have right now. Although I don't know how long the faithfulness he spoke of can last, I might as well take a gamble. Worst case scenario, we just divorce then. With my status as a princess, surely I won't have too hard of a life. Isn't every choice in life a gamble? "Father, I am willing to marry Yanjang." Father nodded with gratification. "Good, good, good. Father has prepared a 10-mile red dowry for you. I will definitely make sure you have a glorious wedding." I held on to Father again. "Father, don't tell Shenqing about breaking off the engagement just yet." Father was puzzled. "Shenqing is also about to marry the woman he loves. I want to send him a congratulatory gift when the time comes. Set my wedding date on the same day as his. At that time, send the imperial decree breaking the engagement and this peach blossom hairpin back to him together. Under the peach blossom tree. The peach blossom hairpin he personally put on me was also our token of love. It is time to return it to its rightful owner." Father agreed. To have his daughter bullied like this gift ought to be sent. The news of young Marquis Yan's engagement to a princess spread like wildfire in the capital. Everyone only knew that young Marquis Yan was going to marry a princess, but they didn't know which princess he was marrying. The current emperor has 10 princesses, excluding the married ones and me, who was engaged. There are 5 princesses left. Father announced that the princess's wedding and the victory in the war were a double joy, calling for a national celebration, so he left everyone in suspense. On the wedding day, they would naturally know which princess young Marquis Yan was marrying. For a time, the people's excitement ran high. In taverns and tea houses, people were placing bets one after another, guessing which princess would get to marry the noble and distinguished young Marquis Yan. It must be the 7th princess. I heard that at a flower viewing banquet she stole several glances at young Marquis Yan. It might also be the 9th princess. Her mother consort and young Marquis Yan's mother are cousins, so their relationship is closer. Everyone in the tea house was discussing excitedly and placing bets. But Shen Qing, sitting in the private room, was a bit absent-minded. He was holding an emerald green jadeite safety lock in his hand. The safety lock had been repaired by a master craftsman, making the signs of the break almost invisible. Only by looking carefully could one see the barely perceptible cracks. Since Channing left his residence last time, he hadn't seen her for a month. He knew she was angry, but punishments had been dealt and beatings given. She should have cooled down by now. In the past, no matter how fiercely they quarreled, as long as 3 or 5 days passed, and he bought a small gift to coax her, they would be as good as new. This time he really had gone a bit too far, but he had his difficulties. It was just that, before he could explain to her, Channing flew into a rage and punished both him and Zheng Kaiwei. However, they had walked hand in hand through the hardest times of their childhood, and he had confidence in Channing. She wouldn't give up on their relationship so easily. Once he married Zheng Kaiwei, he would properly go and coax Channing, telling her that he never regifted the safety lock she gave him to anyone else, and that it was Zheng Kaiwei who took it upon herself to wear it while he was unconscious. He had repaired the safety lock too, and he would cherish it properly in this life, protecting this safety lock with his very life. Brother Shen Qing, what are you thinking about? Zheng Kaiwei walked into the private room from outside. Shen Qing glanced at her coldly, then immediately looked away. His voice was cold. I have kept my promise and married you, but I hope you don't harbor any unreasonable expectations. Know your place. Channing is my wife. You must treat her as your master like everyone else. Serve her, respect her, and do not overstep your bounds. After saying this, he stood up and left, leaving her with only a view of his back. Zheng Kaiwei twisted the handkerchief in her hand, gritting her teeth, her expression ferocious. On the day of the grand wedding, wearing a bright red wedding dress, I sat in the 8-bearer sedan chair. Father Emperor prepared 10 miles of red dowry for me. The wedding procession set out from the palace, marching towards the princess's manor. I lifted a corner of the sedan curtain. The streets were packed with onlookers. A princess getting married is a major event in itself. Not to mention that it is still unknown exactly which princess is getting married. This aroused everyone's curiosity even more. Look, there is another wedding procession coming from the opposite direction. Someone among the onlookers shouted, and everyone's attention was drawn over there. The princess's manor and the general's manor were in exactly opposite directions, one in the far east and the other in the far west. The two wedding processions met on a narrow road facing each other head-on. Through the gap in the sedan curtain, I saw the man sitting high atop a horse, dressed in wedding robes. The man who once asked me to wait for him, who said he would marry me, had ultimately married another woman. As the two wedding processions brushed past each other, I lowered the sedan curtain. The crisp sound of horse hooves rang in my ears. Goodbye, Shen Qing. In this life, I will have no more ties with you, no more entanglements. Today, Shen Qing was somewhat restless, feeling that something big was about to happen. Given Channing's temper, she wouldn't just let things go like this. Maybe she would descend from the sky, block his wedding procession, and sternly order him not to marry another woman. He was afraid of her appearing. No matter what happened, he had to marry Zheng Kaiwei. But he was even more afraid of her not appearing, as that would mean her love for him. Perhaps wasn't that deep. Shen Qing rode absently on his horse, but ran head-on into Yanjang's wedding procession. Yanjang was also wearing bright red wedding robes, but his expression was completely different from his. He was beaming with joy and glowing with energy, looking every bit like a man in high spirits over a happy occasion. He even raised an eyebrow at Shen Qing when looking his way. Shen Qing was puzzled, just which princess was Yanjang marrying to make him so happy? On the battlefield, they were brothers in arms who faced life and death together. But off the battlefield, their relationship wasn't close, because he knew that Yanjang liked Channing. When they were young, Yanjang often trailed behind Channing, constantly calling her sister, Channing. Both Channing and he treated Yanjang as a younger brother and didn't think much of it. But the year Channing was 13, while she was napping under the peach blossom tree, He saw with his own eyes Yanjang kissing Changning on the forehead. It was then he suddenly realized that Yanjang had long harbored other feelings for Changning. Shenqing came back to his senses and took another glance at the big red bridal sedan chair that had just passed him by. Could the person sitting inside be Changning? He was startled by this thought and patted his wildly thumping chest. No, Changning wouldn't marry Yanjang. She had said she would wait for him to come marry her. Shenqing steadied his mind, thinking he couldn't wait any longer. After the wedding ceremony tonight, he would go find Changning immediately and explain everything clearly to her. After arriving at the general's manor, they proceeded smoothly with the wedding ceremony. However, just as husband and wife were about to bow to each other, a eunuch suddenly entered from outside. The eunuch held a bright yellow imperial decree and a sandalwood box, his voice shrill. General Shen, receive the edict. Everyone in the hall looked over in astonishment, then knelt down in unison. Shenqing knelt down stiffly, the unease in his heart magnified infinitely. By the will of heaven, the emperor decrees. Today, General Shenqing and the commoner Zheng Kaiwei are a match made in heaven and have happily tied the knot. To congratulate the lovely couple on uniting their hearts forever, and a harmonious union of 100 years. The engagement between General Shenqing and Princess Changning is hereby annulled. Respect this. The air fell into a dead silence. Shenqing froze in place, his eyes flashing with shock and disbelief. No, Changning wouldn't break off the engagement with him. I must have heard that wrong. The eunuch spoke impatiently. General Shen, hurry up and accept the decree. I've still got to go back and report. Shenqing abruptly stood up, grabbing the eunuch's hand, his voice urgent. Eunuch, was this decree issued by mistake? The princess wouldn't break off our engagement. Take another good look at the contents. The eunuch frowned and scolded sternly. Insolence. How could an imperial decree be mistaken? That is a crime punishable by beheading. General Shen, just accept the decree. You have Princess Changning to thank. It is only because of her generosity and tolerance that you can be with your sweetheart and get married. Also, the princess asked me to pass this peach blossom hairpin to you. She said the love token is returned. From now on, you are strangers in this life with no further ties. Having said that, the eunuch placed the decree and the sandalwood box into Shenqing's hands, then flung his sleeves and left. Shenqing took them numbly, but the next second he quickly blocked the eunuch's path, his eyes scarlet. Where is Princess Changning? I don't believe this decree. I want to find her and ask her face to face. The eunuch gave him a look of disdain. General Shen, just go perform your wedding vows and enter your bridal chamber. Today is also the big day for Princess Changning and young Marquis Yan. Do not disturb them. Let each remain at peace. Shenqing felt like he was struck by lightning, and his hand loosened. The bright yellow decree and the sandalwood box fell to the ground. Inside the bridal chamber, I sat on the wedding quilt embroidered with an auspicious dragon and phoenix, waiting for Yanjang to arrive. With a creak, the room door was pushed open. Footsteps approached from the distance. With a gentle lift of the scale beam, the red veil was uncovered. I looked up at the man before me. His handsome face was flushed red, looking like he had drunk quite a lot. Yanjang held 2 cups of wine and sat down beside me. Sister Changning, I interrupted him with a smile. I am not your sister, husband. Yanjang instantly grew nervous. Why, wife? At this moment, he was worlds apart from the mischievous lad in my memory, inexplicably a bit cute. I chuckled softly, took the wine from his hand, and just as I was about to drink the nuptial wine, the door was kicked open from the outside. It was as if a red whirlwind had struck. The next second my hand was gripped tight, and the wine cup hit the floor. Shenqing grabbed my wrist, pulling me outside. General Shen. Yanjang threw away the wine cup in his hand and blocked Shenqing's path. On a wedding night, instead of entering your own bridal chamber, you barge into someone else's. May I ask, is this proper etiquette? Shenqing was expressionless. I have something to say to Princess Changning. Yanjang scoffed coldly. Don't disturb my wife and me on our wedding night. As he spoke, he landed a punch on Shenqing's right cheek. Shenqing let go of me in pain and immediately swung a fist to strike back. Two men with extraordinary skills fought all the way from the bridal chamber to the courtyard, trading blows back and forth without yielding an inch, as if determined to see who would win. The commotion from their fight was huge, and the servants and maids rushed over following the sound. Seeing this scene, everyone froze in place. I shouted anxiously, "Hurry up and stop them!" The servants, who usually only did menial chores and had no martial arts skills, couldn't separate the fiercely fighting pair at all. I sighed softly. Looks like I have to handle this myself. I pushed off the ground, flew over using my lightness skill, and separated the two from the middle. Then I shielded Yanjang behind me. Shenqing didn't notice, and tried to swing a fist over. Upon seeing my face clearly, the fist stopped barely an inch from my nose. Shenqing retracted his hand and stared furiously at Yanjang behind me. Yanjang provoked him. "What are you staring at? Believe it or not, I'll gouge your eyeballs out." He was itching to make a move behind me, but I scolded him to stop. "Yanjang, you dare try hitting him again." Yanjang immediately behaved, resting his chin on my shoulder, his tone aggrieved. "Feay, he was in the wrong first. He barged into our bridal chamber and even wanted to take you away." I held his hand, turned my head to glare at him, telling him to stop acting and behave himself. Then I turned to look at Shenqing opposite us. Shenqing's gaze fell on our clasped hands, his expression becoming terribly gloomy. I thought for a moment, then spoke. "General Shen, please go back. Don't keep your wife waiting." Shenqing said nothing. With bruises on his cheeks, he fixed his dark eyes on me, his gaze inscrutable. After a long while, he said hoarsely, "Changing, can I talk to you?" I frowned. "First of all, there is a distinction in status. Please address me as Princess Changing, General Shen. Secondly, I don't think there is anything for us to talk about." I pulled Yanjang along and was about to head inside. With a thud, Shenqing knelt down, his voice pleading. "Princess Changing, can you spare me a moment? I beg you." I stopped and looked at Shenqing, who was kneeling bolt upright in the middle of the courtyard. It seemed that he wouldn't leave today unless I let him finish what he had to say. I sighed. "Go ahead." Shenqing looked up at the servants and maids who were craning their necks to watch curiously. I understood his meaning and waved my hand. "You all may leave. And if word of today's events leaks out, you should know the consequences." After they had all left, Shenqing still refused to speak, shifting his gaze to Yanjang. Yanjang pursed his lips and let go of my hand a moment later, but I held on to it tightly. "Yanjang is my prince consort. There are no secrets between us as husband and wife, so just say what you have to say." Yanjang squeezed my hand back, the corners of his lips curling up slightly, as he looked at Shenqing. His eyes revealed a hint of smugness. Shenqing gritted his teeth, his face livid. He took a deep breath and slowly said, "Princess Changing, there is something I must explain clearly to you. I didn't marry Zheng Kaiwei willingly. I had no choice." I couldn't help but sneer. Even now, he was still making excuses for being such a scumbag. Shenqing, who held a knife to your neck and forced you to marry her. If you just admitted you married her because you loved her, I'd actually respect you for having some backbone. Shenqing hurriedly explained. "It is not like that. I married her to repay a kindness. This is what I owe her." That year, on a winter night of heavy snowfall, Shenqing led troops to attack, but fell into a brutal enemy ambush. He led his brothers in a desperate fight to break out, suffering heavy casualties. In the end, only Shenqing made it out alive, but he was gravely wounded. He dragged his injured leg, struggling forward in the snow, and was later saved by Zheng Kaiwei's brother, Zheng Yaoyu. Zheng Yaoyu carried him on his back for a few miles, but while they were resting under a tree, they ran into pursuing troops. Shenqing was injured too severely to resist. If they were discovered, both of them would die. Zheng Yaoyu made a prompt decision. "Brother Shen, I'll go lure them away. If my sister finds out I haven't returned, she'll definitely bring the villagers to come search. It would be best if I can come back. But if I can't, I hope Brother Shen can marry my sister and take care of her for the rest of her life. After all, besides me, She has no other family left. Shenqing lowered his eyes. He couldn't respond to Zheng Yaoyu, constantly remembering that line from Chang'ing. How about just the two of us for a lifetime? But while he was in a daze, Zheng Yaoyu rushed out from behind the tree. Are you officers looking for a man with an injured leg? I know where he went. I'll take you to find him. Zheng Yaoyu led the enemy pursuers in the opposite direction, and then never came back. Shenqing leaned against the tree trunk, looking at Zheng Yaoyu's back, and silently replied, "Okay." As Zheng Yaoyu said, Zheng Kaiwei came searching with the villagers and saved him. But she also lost her older brother forever. To Shenqing, not only did Zheng Kaiwei save his life, but more importantly, he owed her a life, and he had to repay it. Even if he didn't love Zheng Kaiwei, he had to keep his promise to her brother. He had to marry her as his wife. Shenqing broke down emotionally, the rims of his eyes turning red uncontrollably. "Chaining, I have never betrayed you. I love you. Even if Zheng Kaiwei enters the general's manor, I won't touch her. My wife will only ever be you, chaining you. Can you give me another chance?" I closed my eyes, feeling conflicted. Perhaps I should thank Shenqing that he didn't say the reason he married Zheng Kaiwei in time. Otherwise, I would have been trapped in a painful dilemma and struggle, not knowing how to choose. I couldn't stop him from repaying a debt after all. He owed a living human life, but I also couldn't convince myself to accept Zheng Kaiwei's existence. Maybe this is the best ending right now. Shenqing had come to my side at some point, holding that peace lock in his hands. "Chang'ing, look, I've already fixed the peace lock. I didn't give it to Zheng Kaiwei. She took it from me while I was unconscious. The peace lock could be restored after breaking, so we can go back to how we were too, right?" I opened my eyes and met his gaze, which was full of anticipation and longing. "It won't happen." I shook my head. "Shenqing, perhaps everything is arranged by fate, and we should just accept it. Treat Zheng Kaiwei well after all. The only person she can rely on in this world is you." With that, I pulled Yanjang back into the bridal room and shut the door. Outside, the sound of a man's painful weeping could be heard. "Oh heavens! Why must you be so cruel? I, Shenqing, have given my all for the country and the people. Why must you make me lose the one I love?" That night, no one could sleep. My little consort Yanjang has been very cold to me lately. When chatting with him during meals, he always responds to me perfunctorily with just a word or two. At night, he would rather lie on the rocking chair than share the bed with me. I was so anxious that I paced back and forth in the room every day. Sheer suggested, "Princess, you can be a bit more proactive. As long as you get physically intimate with the consort, your relationship as a couple will definitely get better and better." But how do I take the initiative? Just thinking about the scene of me pinning Yanjang down on the bed makes me blush. Years of royal upbringing make it impossible for me to do such a thing. But not long after, news came from the front lines that the Xiongnu were invading again. Father Emperor ordered Shenqing to lead troops to suppress the rebellion. Yanjang wasn't originally in the ranks to set out, but he volunteered. That night, Yanjang, wearing white undergarments, walked towards the lounge chair again. I hugged him from behind. The man's body stiffened. "Husband," I pressed my face against his back. "You must come back alive." I tried not to cry, but my tears still fell uncontrollably, soaking his clothes. Yanjang turned around, his rough fingertips wiping away my tears, his voice hoarse. "Why are you crying?" I pounded his chest. "You are my husband. Of course I have to cry. If you died, wouldn't I become a widow?" Yanjang held me, saying softly, "That won't happen. I won't let anything happen to me." I grabbed his arm and kissed him recklessly, breathing out between our entangling lips. "Yanjang, this princess commands you. You must come back alive for me." Yanjang chuckled softly. "As you command, my princess." He swept me up in a bridal carry and placed me on the bed, leaning down to kiss me. I tightly wrapped my arms around his back. The hibiscus curtains were warm, the candlelight flickered, and our long overdue wedding night was finally complete. In the time before the campaign, we were desperately entangled every single night. Whenever I saw Yanjang looking fresh and energetic, I'd rub my old waist and sigh. "It is so good to be young." In the blink of an eye, the day of departure arrived. I adjusted Yanjang's armor and he bent down to kiss my forehead. The other soldiers teased us for being so lovey-dovey. I leaned into Yanjang's embrace, blushing red. Just then, someone rode past us on a warhorse. I looked up from Yanjang's arms and met Shenqing's gaze. Having not seen him for a long time, Shenqing seemed to have aged a lot, his face showing signs of fatigue. He looked straight at me without shying away, his eyes dark and deep. My shoulder was gripped tightly. I shifted my gaze and tilted my head up to look at Yanjang. The man wore a look of obvious displeasure. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, he was still so jealous. I stood on my tiptoes and kissed his lips. "I'll wait for you to come back." Yanjang held me and deepened the kiss. The sound of soldiers hooting rang out all around, but that figure on horseback grew even stiffer. After watching the departing troops disappear into the distance, I turned to go back, only to find Zheng Kaiwei standing behind me. Zheng Kaiwei looked haggard, completely lacking the aura and grace of the mistress of the general's manor. I didn't want to deal with her, so I lifted my foot to leave. She called out to stop me. "Princess Chang'ing, what gives you the right? Why do you get to be born noble, enjoying endless wealth and glory from the moment you were born? Why do you get to have the love of all men? Even if Shenqing couldn't marry you, he still can't forget you." She suddenly crouched down, covering her face and weeping. "My only brother has left me. Shenqing doesn't love me, and I can only be all alone, with no one to rely on." I watched her trembling figure coldly, my heart completely unmoved. Shenqing never remarried. As the sole mistress of the general's manor, if she had just behaved herself and managed the household well for Shenqing, she could have lived a very comfortable life. But Zheng Kaiwei wanted too much. She didn't just want the status. She wanted Shenqing's love too. She turned the general's manor upside down all day long, making the maids and servants resent her endlessly. Shenqing grew increasingly cold and disgusted with her. I walked away indifferently. She brought all of this upon herself. Her brother had won this chance for her, but it was a pity she didn't know how to cherish it. 5 years later, the war finally came to an end. The Xiongnu signed a letter of surrender, guaranteeing they would never invade again. The army returned, and the people of the entire city cheered in welcome. I stood on the city wall with my daughter, looking at the man leading the procession on horseback, a smile spreading across my face. He is back, but when I saw the coffin being carried at the back of the procession, I froze instantly. Shenqing, he died for his country. During a fierce battle, he threw himself over to block a poisoned arrow for Yanjang. Before he died, he said, "You must take good care of Chang'ing." The peace lock he wore on his chest failed to keep him safe in the end. Zheng Kaiwei fainted on the spot when she saw Shenqing's body. A few days after Shenqing was buried, she committed suicide in the general's manor. It was a bright, sunny day. Me daughter kept clamoring to go fly a kite. Yanjang walked ahead carrying our daughter, and the father and daughter looked back at me. "Mother, hurry up." I smiled and caught up with them, having a husband and daughter who love me in this life. I am already very satisfied.